right away. Okay, so let's begin. So this is just some flowers. Okay. One thing that is common on most cacao farms is that most cacao farms are able to produce so much flowers. Most cacao trees are able to produce so much flowers. But usually the problem that most farmers have is how to turn those flowers into pods. Okay, because very often most of those flowers fall and they don't produce pods. And sometimes when the pods begin to grow, they just fall in the shortest possible time. Okay, so you really need to have a clear understanding about the physiology of the cacao flowers so that you will be able to facilitate proper flowering and pod formation. Okay. So now let's look at the structure of the flower. Okay, so up here we have stamenals. Okay, and the stamenals usually they are the protective structure for the style. The style here. So later on we'll talk about the types of flowers, and you'll get to understand the nature of it. Okay, and inside here we have the style. Okay, the style is the protrusion that comes from the ovary. So the ovary is where the eggs are produced. Okay, where the eggs are produced. And then we have the stamen. Okay, the stamen is considered as the male structure. So what we have in here, the style all the way to the ovary constitute the female structure. Okay, and then over here we have the petal. Okay, the petal usually covers the male part of the flower, and then we have the sepal, and then the flower pod. So in fertilization, what you need to understand more has to do with the function of the stamenals, the style, the stamen, and then the petals. Okay, because their arrangement influences flowering. It influences flower fertilization. Okay, so you need to really understand this very well. Okay, in case you have to enhance flowering, you exactly know what to do. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, so the pollen grains from the male, okay, the male is here, and then this is the female. Usually the structure of the flower makes it very or almost impossible for cacao to pollinate itself. Okay, for cacao to pollinate itself. Because the female structure is higher than the male structure, it's difficult for the pollen grains to rise from here and fall on the side over here. Okay, so most fertilization in cacao is more of cross pollination instead of self-pollination. Okay, so we see here that the flower, okay, from this point grows, it opens, and then it opens completely. So at this point, fertilization will take place. So if fertilization is effective, then it grows to become a small pod, and then grows to become a big pod. Okay, so these are the stages. Later on, in another diagram, I will explain it in a little more detail. So these are the stages, okay, in the flowering all the way to pod formation. Okay. Now, if you look at this, this is a very vivid picture which will help you to understand this very well. So earlier I mentioned about the staminals. So if you can see well, the staminals are hidden. No, the style is hidden within the staminals. So it's like a covering, okay, for the female part of the flower. And if you check here, the anther, which is the middle strata, is covered, okay, by a hood or by the petals. And this makes it nearly impossible for the pollen grains from here to travel all the way to this place, because there's a lack of covering around the male part and then the female part. So usually fertilization in cacao is it's difficult. Okay, that is why, apart from natural pollination, if there's any way you can enhance pollination on your farm, you need to do it. And then from research and experience, enhancing pollination on your farm can increase your yield by 4 or even 5 times if you are able to do it. It's a little tedious, but it always pays off once you decide to do it. Okay, so now let's talk about the 3 types of flowers. The 3 types of flowers. Okay, the first type of flower is called the convergent flowers. Okay, so in convergent flowers, the staminals all point inward at the tip. So as you can see here, the staminals, they converge at the tip. So over here, we see here that the female part of the flower is completely covered. Okay, it's completely covered. So pollen from here finds it difficult to fertilize in this particular type of flower on the cacao tree. Okay, now the second type of flower is called the parallel flowers. So over here, the staminals all point straight. So the staminals are straight. They are not like the convergent. So they are straight. So they are called parallel. Okay. So in here, fertilization is not as difficult compared to the convergent. Okay, fertilization is not as difficult compared to the convergent. Okay, and then the third type is called the splayed flowers, or we can also call it the divergent flowers. So here we see that the staminals they divert or they open outward. They are not straight and they don't converge, but they open outward. Okay, so at the tip we can see that they are opening upwards. Okay, so these are the three types of flowers. And we are going to look at the differences between the three types of flowers and which of these flowers really ensures most fertilization or pollination. Okay, so only the converging and parallel type of flowers can be successfully pollinated by flies or insects. So only the converging and parallel flowers can only be successfully pollinated. Okay, which means that the splayed or the divergent flowers, it's really hard for pollination to take place in that. All right. But we can say that this is okay because the entirety of the cacao tree, okay, make the most of this type of flowers. So what we are saying here is that about 56% and 37% of the flowers are convergent and parallel. So convergent flowers are about 56%, and then the parallel flowers constitute about 37% of the flowers. So which means that the percent of divergent flowers, they are just very few. So apparently, pollinators are picky, okay, and usually they land more on the parallel flowers most of the time. Okay, now let me add a little more explanation to this. Usually, the divergent flowers tend to cover the male part of the flowers. So the pollinators find it difficult to have access to the male part or to have access to the pollen grains because it's like that. So usually below uh, the staminodes and then the petals, the male part of the flower is hidden. So pollinators find it very, very difficult, okay, to get in there. But it's not a bad news because we have 56% being convergent flowers and then 37% being parallel flowers. And this is enough to give us enough fruit. All right, so let's talk about the staminodes. So the staminodes, they are like stamen, the male part of the flowers, but these do not produce pollen grains. Okay, so as you can see here, this is the staminode. Okay, they don't produce pollen grains. So the pollen producing anther are hidden by the hoods of the staminodes and can only be accessed by tiny insects near the base of the flower. Okay, so usually what happens is that when the male of the flower produces the pollen grains, okay, the hood of the staminodes cover the cover the male part, okay, of the anther. So it's difficult for pollinators or insects to get in here. Okay, difficult to get in here. You have access to the pollen grains and then in turn fertilize the flowers. Okay, now let's look at the position of the style. So the style, which is the female part of the flower, is located in the middle of the spiral male bit, or it's found inside the staminals. So this is the style here, which is also hidden inside the staminals. So the insect must bypass the staminals in order to deposit the pollen on the style. So every pollinator that needs to fertilize this flower must be able to penetrate, okay? They have to penetrate the staminals in order to fertilize the style or the female part of the flower. And usually it gets more complicated because each tree produces 3 variants flower types, okay? Because of the variety in the flowers, we mentioned there are 3 types of flowers, okay? Because of the variety or because of the differences in the type of flowers on the cacao tree, actually makes it more complicated when it comes to flowering, okay? Because some are convex, some are straight, and some are diverged or splayed. All right. Okay, now let's talk about self-incompatibility. Self-incompatibility. Most cacao trees are self-incompatible. And what that means is that they cannot fertilize themselves. And most of the time, if ever the pollen from the flower falls on the same flower or on another flower on the same tree, the flower dies and falls down. Okay, so as you can see in this photo here, okay, we have cross-pollination and then we have self-pollination. Okay, so in self-pollination, we have 2 types of self-pollination. Okay, the first one is called the autogamy, okay, which has to do with the pollen from a flower falling on the female part of the same flower. Okay, and the second type is called the heteronogamy, which has to do with the pollen from one flower falling on the female part of another flower, but on the same tree. So what that means is that self-pollination is usually not possible in most cacao trees. Okay, self-pollination is usually not possible, but cross-pollination is what usually happens. So I will have pollen grains from one tree being transferred to another tree. Okay, that is usually what makes most cacao trees bear fruit. So if you realize that most of the flowers on your cacao tree are falling down, it could be that self-pollination is taking place on the cacao farm or on the trees. And when self-pollination is taking place, most of the flowers are going to fall. Okay, because of self-incompatibility. So to avoid this, you need to enhance cross-pollination on your farm. And then we are going to talk about that in detail later. But the idea here is you need to understand that to really ensure fertilization, you need to facilitate cross-pollination. Okay? So we are saying pollination is complicated because most of the trees cannot pollinate themselves. Okay, they cannot pollinate themselves. And because they can't pollinate themselves, if ever self-pollination takes place, the flowers are going to fall completely. The flowers fall completely. Okay, therefore, most cacao undergo cross-pollination, like I mentioned. So the flies or the pollinators have to travel around and pollinate the different trees, okay? And usually this happens by chance or by possibility. And this is something we really need to understand, okay? Now let's talk about the reality. Okay, the problem, pollination rate in cacao tends to be much lower and usually uh, between 15 to 30%, okay, in most traditional cacao plantation, okay, just that. So only 15 to 30% tend to be pollinated. And then usually, okay, that is in advanced farms. And usually in traditional cacao, it's between 3 to 5% only. Okay, so you should be able to raise the pollination rate in order to raise pod formation. So on average, on the entire tree, it's like only 20% of the flowers are going to be pollinated. Okay, and when the 12% is pollinated, not all the pollinated flowers are going to grow into pods. So a lot more, maybe more than 50%, are going to fall even after pollination. So it tends to be that like only about 10% of the flowers will grow to maturity. Okay, that is why there is the need to enhance pollination. So you have to increase pollination on your farm. Okay, so now let's talk about the pollinators. So what pollinates cacao farms? Most people think like honeybees and some other insects pollinate cacao, but that is not the case. It's not true. There is only one insect that pollinates cacao, okay? And they are called the midges, okay? They are called midges. And these midges tend to be the only naturally occurring insects that pollinates cacao because bees do not have that capacity to help in pollination. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, the structure of the flower is such that bees are too big. They cannot penetrate. Okay, they cannot penetrate to pollinate the cacao. They cannot go inside the flower to enhance the pollination. So the maize is like 1 to 3 millimeters in size. Okay. However, one thing we need to understand is only flies or insects that are between 2 to 3 centimeters can pollinate flowers because the other insects could be big, okay? They are too large in size. So if the insect size is not between 2 to 3 millimeters, then they cannot pollinate the cacao flowers, okay? All right, so we need to get this very clear. Maybe you are seeing a lot of insects on your farm, and then you are thinking, oh, they are doing pollination, and that is not true. Okay, if ever the activity were causes any pollination, it just happens by chance. it just happened by chance. But their size do not allow pollination to take place. That is one thing that you need to understand. Okay, let's move on. So this is how the midge looks like. They're just small, very small insects. Okay. So usually the midge live in the decaying matter at the base of the cacao tree, and then they warm they warm in huge clouds all around the flower branches. So usually on the cacao farm, there are a lot of leaves on the ground, and the midge live inside those dump of cacao leaves, okay, the pile of the cacao leaves. So that is where the midges live. So if you look at this here, this image here, look at the size of the flower compared to the size of the pollinator. So that gives you an idea about how small the pollinator looks like. Okay, so it's really, really very tiny insect. So if the insect is not around 2 to 3 millimeters, then it doesn't have the capacity to enhance pollination on the farm. So pollinators of cacao need to be as small as this. They need to be as small as this. Okay? So causes of low yield in cacao usually include scarcity of the main pollinators, especially during the dry season. So here in the Philippines, there are two seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. During the rainy season, midges are able to reproduce more. But during the dry season, they reproduce less. Why? Because midges lay their eggs in damp areas or in moist areas or in water, just like the mosquitoes. So if the farm is very dry or the ground is very dry, the soil is very dry, then reproduction of midges on the farm will be affected as well. Okay, so on irrigated farms, usually pollination is better than non-irrigated farms. Okay, that's one thing you should know. So the characteristics of the cacao flower seem to make it unattractive to many potential pollinators. And therefore, only insects that have evolved with the plant will successfully pollinate it. What that means is that, like many other flowers with nice looking petals, with bright colors that attract insects, cacao flowers are not like that. Actually, according to some research, the cacao flower does not have any significant odor, okay, or call it scent, okay, or fragrance that attract insects. Because insects usually are attracted, number one, by color, number two, by the fragrance from the flower, the smell, the scent from the flower. But cacao does not have that property in terms of color and scent or smell. So naturally, the flower does not attract pollinators. So usually, because of evolution, the cacao is has evolved with this kind of insect, the midge, and because of that, they are always in the cacao, and they have the capacity to enhance pollination on the farm. Okay, so what you have to do as a farmer is to enhance the multiplication of these midges on your farm in order to improve pollination. So usually they contact the pollen bearing stamens of the flowers and then transfer the pollen to the pistil or to the style of another flower, and then perhaps many meters away. So what happens is that if you check this particular image here, the midge settles here, okay, and then manage to travel over here because the male part of the flower is buried by the petals over here, okay? So they get here, they sit over here, and then their body is attached to some pollen grains. So from here, they travel, they fly to another plant, another tree, and then as they sit, and then they are able to travel over here to the style or the pistil, then sitting on the flower, they release the pollen grains on the flower or on the female part of the flower. Okay? If ever they pick the pollen from here and sit on another flower on the same tree, then it's likely that flower is going to die because of self-incompatibility in cacao. Okay, so this is something you need to get it clearly. So cacao flowers are resistant, okay, to self-pollination, just like most of the world's flowering plants. Okay, so in the pollen from flower A falls on the pollen, falls on the female part of flower B on the same tree, then the flower is going to die. So most of the pollen distributed by midges come obviously from flowers of the same tree. However, unlike bees or butterflies, they don't tend to roam very far. So midges do not have the capacity to fly to very long distance. So usually when they pick the pollen grain from this, okay, they don't travel for more than 5 meters away. Okay, so they travel like 2 to 3 meters, sit on the next tree, like that. Okay, so it is very important to have more midges because the few midges on the farm cannot travel to very long distance. And because they cannot travel to very long distance, okay, they cannot cause pollination on a very big farm. So if the colony of the midges is not really large, then you are going to have less pollination and less fruit formation on your farm. Okay? So the ovary of each cacao flower is able to recognize its own pollen. And the tree rejects that flower, causing it to wither and drop from the tree. Okay? So what that means is that the physiology of the tree is such that if ever the pollen from a flower falls on the style of the same flower or another flower on the same tree, the tree is able to know that this pollen is my own pollen. And what that happens, the tree rejects that particular flower So the flower withers and it falls down. So only pollen from different trees will be allowed to form a cacao pod. Okay, so you need to get it very well. You need to get it. Okay. So this can lead to very low amount of fruit actually setting. So recent research into flowering and pollination have led to some very interesting discoveries that will be impacting cacao growers this season, okay, in the coming decades. So it turns out that most cacao trees will allow at least a few flowers to self-pollinate, while some varieties may allow as much as 50% of them to self-pollinate. Okay, so present research is trying to investigate into the possibility of self-pollination in cacao, okay, through cross-breeding and genetic manipulation. So maybe in the few years, we may have some cacao varieties that may be able to self-pollinate about 50% of its flowers. But presently, we don't have varieties like that. But genetic engineering is presently working on that to promote self-pollination in cacao. So as you can see over here, you see that this flower is dying. It's withering. So what that could mean is maybe this flower has been self-pollinated or some other factors are causing the flower to die or to wither. Okay? So environmental factors and tree stress can change this percentage too. So what we are saying here is self-pollination can let a lot of the flowers fall. In the same way, other factors like low amount of water, low soil moisture can also cause flowers to fall. High temperatures can also cause flowers to fall. Okay, so many other factors or even diseases can cause flowers to fall. So many factors, other factors can cause flowers to fall in the cacao plantation. Okay, so as long as propagation of those trees occur via soft wood cutting and not by seed, genetic flaws will not be allowed to develop. Okay, so what that means is that if propagation is through cutting, it could be budding or grafting, and if it's not by seed, okay, then some of the problems of self-incompatibility can be reduced. Okay, and what that means is that seedlings planted from grafting usually are better than seedlings planted, than trees planted all the way from seeds. So usually it's more advisable to use grafted seedlings than seedlings planted than seedlings raised from seeds only. Okay, now let's look at some research findings. Okay, let's look at some research findings. Optimum flower production occurs at temperatures around 22.5 degrees Celsius, light intensity of 91.8, and then rainfall of 1.1 millimeters per month. However, rainfall could be the most critical factor in the floral phenology. So flower stability is usually affected by seasons and pollination. So here the point is there are other factors that could affect flower production, okay, like temperature. So if temperatures on your farm are higher, maybe like 28 degrees, 30 degrees, then flower production will be affected, okay? If your farm is really too crowded with trees and other things, then flower formation is also going to be affected because light is really needed for flower formation. And then among these factors, rainfall usually is the most influential factor for flower formation. So if the soil moisture is very low, flower formation can be seriously affected. And that's why we have peak season and low season, or we have peak harvest and then off-peak harvest. So the difference is just rainy season and dry season. So what happens is for irrigated farms, they have two peak seasons in a year. Why? Because the amount of rainfall, the amount of water or moisture in the soil, it's always the same. So it doesn't matter whether it's December or June, the farmers have always good harvest. Okay? Now let's look at some more research findings. Midges visit the farm more than any other insect. Okay? And only midges could carry 60%, okay, of pollen needed for pollination. So what that means is that for the entirety of pollination on the farm, the midges carry about 60% of the pollen grains, which means that population of midges is significantly greater, okay? And a rotten banana, pseudostems, and other substrate, okay? So research has shown that bananas are the most friendly media for the multiplication of midges on cacao farms. Okay, so if there are rotten banana stems or rotten banana debris on the farm, the midges are able to reproduce faster. The pollinators are able to reproduce faster on the farm. Okay, they are able to reproduce faster on the farm. So what that means is that as a farmer, you need to have some bananas in your cacao plantation. Or you should cut the stems of the banana, split them, and throw them all over the farm. So as they get rotten, the midges will lay their eggs in those rotten material, in those rotten banana stems, and be able to multiply faster, okay, on the farm. Okay, so this is going to be the end of our first presentation. So I'm going to open the door for Q&A. If you have any question, please send your question in the Q&A. Okay, send your question in the Q&A, and then I will answer those questions. Okay, so I will answer the questions. So please send your questions about the physiology of the flower and then the midges. Okay, so we have the first question here. Let's try to answer. You mentioned irrigation. What would you suggest? How should it be done? What type of irrigation will you recommend? Okay, the most successful irrigation that has been invented so far as cacao is concerned is drip irrigation. Setting up drip irrigation system on your farm, it can be very, very expensive. However, it always pays off. Okay, it always pays off. If you are able to set up a drip irrigation system on your farm, okay, it always pays off. So using irrigation system, if you are a kind of farmer who does not have enough capital or money to set up this kind of system, it might not be possible, except you can accept some funds, either from a bank or from a cooperative or something. But I must say that, look, if you are able to set up the irrigation system on your farm, that alone can double or triple your yield. Okay, it can really increase your yield significantly. Okay, so take note of this. Okay, and then usually in irrigating the farm, irrigation could be done like once a week, and that is enough. Okay, once a week, irrigation, irrigating the farm should be enough. However, it also depends on the type of soil. Okay, if your soil is a sandy soil, it should be like twice a week. Maybe sandy loam soil should be twice a week. But if you have clay loam soils that is able to hold more water, then once a week irrigating the farm should be enough. Okay, once a week irrigating the farm is enough. Okay. Mom Joy is asking, can stainless bee also pollinate cacao? Stainless bees, actually there are about 2 or 3 types of stainless bees. Okay, there is one particular type of stainless bee that is very small that can pollinate the farm because their size is around 3 millimeters only. But there is another type of stainless bee that is big in size. That one cannot pollinate the farm. Okay, so it depends on the stainless bee. Okay, so you have to check the size of the bees. If they are bigger than 3 millimeters, then they cannot be effective in pollinating the cacao farm. Actually, that is one area I'm researching about presently with stainless bee. So when I'm done with the research, maybe I will share the findings through one of these trainings. Okay, so how we can colonize those stainless bees, especially the small ones, multiply them and use them on the cacao plantation. Okay, and then somebody is asking, my cacao already around 3 years old, but not produce flower. Okay, so if your cacao is around 3 years old and it's still not producing flower, okay, number one, it could be because of the variety, okay, because some varieties take like 3.5 years before they produce flower, okay. However, if it's not because of variety, then nutrition should be able to solve the problem. Okay, so if the soil is, if the cacao farm is fertilized, and then there is enough rainfall, they will begin to produce flower immediately. They will begin to produce flower immediately. Okay, so I will recommend that you fertilize the farm. Later in the next presentation, I will talk about the fertilizer that you need to use. So you should fertilize it, especially now is the rainy season. So fertilize it, okay, and then hopefully that new flowers will begin to pop out when fertilization is done. Okay, new flowers will begin to come. All right. Okay, so Noel is asking, what's the effect of insecticide used in nearby farms affect the midges? Okay, if the insecticide is not used on your farm, okay, there's less effect. There's less effect if the insecticide is not used on your farm. However, if the wind is strong, it can blow. Okay, it can blow, especially if it's a mist spray. It can blow some of the residues of the insecticides into your farm. But the effect is not as strong compared to if the spraying is done on your farm. Okay, so to combat that, you can plant some trees around your farm. Okay, or you can plant some bananas around the farm. Okay, just to block the spray, the insecticide spray that may come from nearby farms. So that would be like a shield to protect the midges on your farm. Okay. And then another question, how can artificial manipulated pollination be useful? Yes, it can be very, very useful. In the afternoon, we are going to talk about artificial pollination and how you can do it on your farm, because it's really very useful if you can do it. Okay, if it will be very helpful. Okay, because all the pictures that I have been using on Facebook, these are a comprehensive project ensuring reproduction, multiplication of midges together with artificial pollination, everything together. So a combination of natural and artificial pollination on the farm will give you drastic result, tremendous result. Okay, so in the afternoon, I'm going to talk about how you can do that, how you can do that on your farm. Okay, another question, what particular time of the day do you do manual pollination to ensure development of pollen grains? To ensure development of, to ensure pollination, not development of pollen grains. Okay, usually pollination should be done in the morning. before 9 o'clock in the morning. That is the right time to do pollination on the farm. So in the afternoon, I'm going to discuss this into more detail. Okay, so that is how it's to be done. Okay, another question. Can overgrowth of midges induce be induced to benefit cacao pollination, not become nuisance of insects? What's the effect of the balance of nature, the food chain? Okay. So Noel, if you have a lot of midges on your farm, they don't cause any nuisance on the farm. Okay. So it's like maybe on your mango plantation, having a lot of bees, okay, visiting the farm, they don't have any kind of negative effect on the farm, because all that they do is to pollinate by feeding on the nectar of the flower. So a lot of midges on the farm do not have any negative effect on nature, okay? Because their source of food is nothing but the nectar from the cacao. And because of their feeding effect, they pollinate the plant. They don't have any other side effect of having a side effect on the farm. Okay, so research has not yet documented any kind of side effect of too many midges on the farm. As of now, we don't have any documented side effect. Okay, another question. If only midges are used, if only midges are the only pollinators, is there any way to breed them? Or maybe how will the midges populate on the farm? Okay, like I mentioned, okay, usually the number one media where midges really reproduce a lot is in banana pseudostems, rotten banana pseudostems. So to help breed them, you need to have a lot of rotten banana stems on the farm. I mean, distributed them on the ground of on the farm. So as the banana stem begin to rot, the midges will lay their eggs in the stems of the rotten banana. So that is the number one way to populate midges on the farm. And another way is you don't have to remove the leaves. Okay, the fallen leaves on the cacao farm, just leave them there. Don't throw them away, because some of the eggs are also laid, okay, in those places. And then number three, also make sure that in some places in the farm, there is collection of water. So you can dig small holes and then just put some plastic in there and then put water. Because in that water, the midges will lay their eggs. So if you combine all these, then for sure, the population of midges on the farm will increase drastically. Will increase drastically. Okay. So Noel is asking, what is the technique to do in artificial manipulation? Okay, so Noel, in the afternoon, I'm going to discuss this, okay? So reserve your question for the afternoon. because in the afternoon everything has to do with advanced pollination, which has to do with artificial pollination. So we are going to answer that one later. Okay, another question. A specific variety of midges required for cacao. What about in the Philippines? What type of midges occur compared to other countries? Okay, so to answer that question, okay, as of now, research has not reported any varieties of midges specific for a particular type of cacao. From all the research I made, and then from the years of experience that I've been in the cacao industry, it's not been reported yet. And then in the Philippines, usually geographic location causes some kind of evolution of insects, okay? However, their nature and activities do not change, okay? For example, midges in Ghana do not differ, okay, in terms of the ability to pollinate a cacao compared to midges in the Philippines, okay? So midges are the same, just like naturally occurring mosquitoes. Like mosquitoes in Africa are the same like mosquitoes in the Philippines. But the difference is that through evolution, okay, they've got all kinds of effects. Okay, they've got all kinds of effects. But what they do is basically the same. Okay, so midges across the world, they are the same in terms of the ability to pollinate the flower, their ability. However, their morphology might change a little because of geographic location. Okay, how they look, their color, and all those might change in some way. But what they do is basically the same. Okay, and as of now in the Philippines, there is no documented differences between the midges in other countries compared to the midges that are found over here. Okay, another question. What insects kill, destroy, or compete with midges? How do we control those competitors? Okay, usually they are some carnivorous insects that are found on farms, and then most spiders. Okay, most spiders on farms, on cacao farms, they feed on insects, not just on the midges, but they feed on insects in general. Okay, so if you want to control them, you can kill them manually when you find them. Another predatory insect is called playing mantis. Playing mantis. They also feed on insects. Okay, so if you also find them on the farms, you can destroy them. Okay, but their population is really not in a way that you have to spray them, because by spraying you are also going to kill the midges at the same time. But spiders and praying mantis, they are the most common predatory insects on the farm that could attack the midges. or who attack other uh, that could attack other insects on the farm. Okay, another question. There's a lot of unwanted weeds on our cacao farm. Is it okay to use herbicides to kill unwanted or high grasses? If there is any is there any side effect? Okay, Michael, on cacao farms, the use of insecticide is not recommended. Later, I will talk more about that. So it's always advisable to use manual method, okay, to slash weeds on cacao farms than using weedicide. Okay, and the reason is that most of the midges are found on the soil. So by spraying, you are going to kill the midges at the same time. So it's not advisable. It's not advisable to spray. So you can hire some people to just kill to slash the weeds instead of using insecticides because they are not friendly to the pollinators on your farm. Okay, it's not recommended. Okay, and then another question: what about dragonflies? Okay, yeah, so no, dragonflies. Through my research, I did not come across dragonflies. However, from your experience, if you notice that dragonflies also feed on insects, then there's the possibility that they can also feed on the midges on the farm, which means that if you find them, you need to destroy them because they will as well attack. Okay, they will as well attack the midges on the farm. Okay, so any more questions about this before we move on to our second presentation? Any questions? Any more questions? Okay, so if there are no more questions, we are going to move on right away to our second presentation. We are going to look at the pre-pollination techniques. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. Okay. So in the pre-pollination techniques, okay, we are going to talk about things that you need to do before pollination begins. Okay, because if you don't do these things, your pollination will not be effective. Your pollination is not going to be effective. So you need to do all these things before pollination begins. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing we are going to talk about is weeding the farm. Okay, so weeding should be done at the beginning of the raining season. Weeding should be done at the beginning of the raining season. Okay, so weedicides are highly discouraged as they are harmful So the pollinators and the soil microbes. Okay, so we don't usually recommend using weedicides on the cacao farm. Number one, because they will kill the pollinators, and number two, they are going to kill the microorganisms in the soil. Okay, so it's always recommended you could use a slasher, or you could use a mower. Okay, like in this image here. Okay, you can buy this. I think here in the Philippines, this will not cost, maybe this will cost around 3,000 to 4,000. Okay, and you can use this every year. You just put it on your back, and then you can use it to slash all the weeds on the farm. Okay, instead of using insecticide. It's much easier. Okay, all right. Now let's talk about why you should prune the farm. Okay, pruning should be done after weeding. Okay, so after clearing the weeds on the farm, the next thing that you follow is pruning of the farm. You need to prune, okay, because it's reducing the incidences of diseases and pests on the farm, okay, and ensures proper ventilation and light distribution for photosynthesis. Okay, so when a farm is pruned right after weeding, okay, disease incidence will be reduced completely, and then ventilation and light penetration on the farm is also going to be ensured. Okay, if there's proper photosynthesis, then there's going to be a lot of flowering, and more flowering means more pod formation and higher yield. Okay, and then it also opens up the branches for flowering. So when pruning is done, okay, flower initiation is enhanced. Okay, so unlike other tree crops, for cacao, the flowers appear on the stems, okay, not on the tip of the branches. Appears on the stems and the branches. Okay, so get note of this, that when pruning is done and ventilation is good on the farm, okay, there is a trigger of flower formation which happens, and that is why pruning is very important. Now let's look at the structure of the cacao tree. Okay, so as you can see in this image here, we have the top root, the lateral root, the trunk, the basal chupon, and then we have the first jockey. And then the branches will begin. Then we have the second chupon, and then the second jockey. Okay, one thing you should note is that in pruning, okay, you have to remove the basal chupon. They should not be allowed to grow. Okay, it should not be allowed to grow, so you have to remove it. Most of the time, you should ensure single stem formation. Okay, single stem formation, or at most, for some varieties, it should allow at most 2 stems forming from the ground. Okay, because this affects the size of the pod. So if you have like 3 stems growing together or 4 stems growing together, the size of the pods are going to be small. Okay, so you should always ensure that good training of the stems of the tree is very important. Usually here in the Philippines, I have seen on so many farms, uh, the cacao tree has 6 stems at the same time. This is not okay. It's a bad training. Okay, so if you want to have bigger pots with bigger seeds, okay, and more pots formation, you should allow maximum of 2 stems. Okay, and then up here you can allow more branches. Okay, for the first jockey. The first jockey, you could allow around 5, maximum of 5 jockey, branch there. Okay, talking about the fan branch over here, about 5. Okay, but the main branches or the main stem should be around 2 only. Should be around 2. Okay, should be around 2. In any case, if you are allowed, should be 3 at most, but most recommended is 2 stems maximum. But the best is a single stem. Okay, the best is a single stem, which means that you need to really train the trees. Okay, you have to train them very well. Okay, if you don't train the trees very well, yield is going to be affected. Okay, your yield is going to be affected. So understand this. These are some of the pruning tools that you can use, okay, to prune the farms. So if you don't have these kind of tools, you have to buy them, okay, so that you don't cause damage to the stems, okay? All right, so let's continue. So the basic aim of pruning cacao trees is to stimulate flowering and to facilitate harvesting. Okay, so you prune to make sure that, look, you get more flowers and to make harvesting easier. Okay, so young cacao trees should develop a jockey at a height of around 1.5 meters. Okay, so the first branch formation should not be allowed below 1.5 meters. Okay, so this ensures proper ventilation on the farm. And number 2, it reduces the incidence of pot rot. Okay, it reduces the incidence of pot rot on the farm. And then it also makes movement on the farm easier. Okay, so if the branching is being formed below 1.5 meters, you have to cut them off. Okay, you have to cut them off. However, the jockey height varies significantly from tree to tree. Okay, you have some varieties that form jockey lower. Okay, then other varieties form jockey higher. However, with proper training, you can ensure that there is a good jockey formation. Okay, so the most recommended is 1.5 meters above ground level for proper training of the trees. Okay, because the size of the stem also affects flowering. If you have a lot of branches right from the ground, a lot of stems, okay, you have less flower formation and smaller pod. Okay, so single stem or double stem make the stem get bigger. And the bigger the stem, the more flowers are formed. And the bigger pot you are going to get. Okay, so take note of that. All right, let's continue. So it has been found that increasing light intensity decreases the jockey height. So if a jockey is considered low, it can be cut off. Okay? So the point here is that if light intensity is high, okay, then it can decrease the height of the jockey. So you need to make sure that you don't allow the jockey to fall lower, but you have high jockey, okay, because high jockey enhances light. Low jockey makes the farm look cloudy and dark, so less light on the farm. And then the branches are going to overlap. With low jockey formation, there's more overlap of branches. Okay, so this is one thing you should know. And then the strongest of the regrowing coupon, okay, can be selected and all others removed. So if you notice that there are coupons coming out, cut them off, okay? If ever you want to allow any coupon to grow for any reason, then you have to select the most healthy looking one, and then you cut the rest off. So maybe you want to allow 2 stems, which means that any other stem growing needs to be cut off. Okay, so in due course, the coupon will produce a jockey, okay, at a higher level. Vegetatively propagated plants or cacao generally have a jockey at a lower level, okay, at a lower level. So it will take proper training for grafted seedlings to produce a jockey at a higher level, okay, because lower jockey formation is usually not recommended. It's usually not recommended. So now let's look at these pictures here, okay. So in picture 1, the question is the crown too low? The answer is yes. Meaning that this tree was not properly trained. Okay, this tree was not properly trained. Okay, in picture 2, is this crown too high? The answer is yes. So it means that this tree was not also properly trained. Okay, how about this one? Is the crown too open? The answer is yes. So which means that this tree was not also properly trained. So all the 3 images here look like a cacao farm which was not really properly managed. Okay, so if your farm looks like any of these 3, it means that proper management is not taking place on your farm. Okay, proper management is not taking place on your farm. Okay, so you will notice that disease incidence in picture 1 and picture 3 is going to be high. Okay, it's going to be high because the stem formation, the canopy formation is closer to the soil level. And generally speaking, the closer the canopy is to the soil level, the higher the incidence of disease and pests on your farm. Because most of the time, the diseases come from the soil. The breeding ground of the disease is in the soil. Okay, so the closer the canopy formation is to the soil level, the higher the incidence of disease and pests on your farm. The higher the incidence of disease and pests on your farm. Okay, And then we have over here for picture 4. Is the crown very close? The answer is yes. So the crown here is too condensed. Okay, the crown here is too condensed, which means that pruning is needed over here, okay, to open up. So all the hidden leaves and branches need to be cut off. Okay. How about picture number 5? Are the branches intertwined with those of neighboring branches? The answer is yes. So over here, there is overlapping of branches. So if there is overlapping of branches, okay, the branches here need to be cut off. You need to cut off the branches here, okay? How about picture number 6? Is the crown unbalanced? The answer is yes. Okay, so you don't prune your tree like that. Okay, maybe there's a typhoon or something, and this branch is completely broken off. So what you need to do is you need to provide a stick. You need to support this side with a stick so that it doesn't fall off. And then you need to allow this branch to grow again. The branch on the left side, you have to allow it to grow again. Okay, you have to allow it to grow again. All right, so in cases like this, you need to do something. You need to do some pruning, okay? You need to do some pruning in cases like this. So I don't know how your farm looks like, but if your farm looks like any of these, it means that pruning is going to be needed. Okay, pruning is going to be needed on your farm. Okay, so now let's look at the images here. So if the farm, if the tree looks like this, okay, so you clean the upper part. Okay, so the height of the cacao tree should not be more than 3 meters. The height of the tree should not be more than 3 meters. So anything that is going more than 3 meters, you have to prune them off. Okay, and keep the trees height up to 3 meters, like that. Okay, and then over here, you have to remove all the branches, all the leaves in this area. The smaller branches and leaves in this area need to be removed as well. So as you can see in this image, so you are going to remove over here the leaves and the branches. And then you have an open canopy which looks like this one over here. Okay. And then over here, you see there's overlapping branches. So you are going to remove the overlapping branches, and then you have something like this. Okay, so a properly managed farm has trees that look like these ones over here. Okay, so there's enough penetration of sunlight, and then there is proper ventilation. And when it looks like this, okay, there's going to be enough flowers being formed, okay, on the branches, and then enough pods which are going to be produced, okay, on the farm. All right, so I want us to let's take just 5 to 10 minutes break, and then after that, we'll continue, okay? Just CR break, just shortly. Okay. So now let's talk about effective pollination. Okay, so let's begin by looking at the flower again. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about the various parts of the flower. Okay, so if you want to use artificial pollination, okay, you really need to understand the nature of the flower. Okay, so like I said, we have the staminodes over here. And we said the staminodes are, they are like structures, male structures, but they don't produce pollen. And then we have the stigma. The stigma is the top part of the male flower, and of the female flower. And then we have the style, and then the ovary. Okay, that's where the eggs are found. The anther has the pollen grain. Okay, so for fertilization to take place, okay, pollen from here need to move all the way up, but it's usually not possible. Okay, it's usually not practical. Okay, if the pollens were up here, if the pollens were up here, and then the stigma was down, okay, pollen could easily fall on the stigma, but it's the other way around. So it makes it difficult. Okay, and then as you can see here, the petals try to cover the stigma at the anther. And because of that, it's difficult for the pollinators to attach themselves to the pollen grains and pollinate the flower. So now let's begin by looking at fertilization to seed ratio. Fertilization to seed ratio. If a fruit of cacao has 40 seeds, it means that 40 pollen grains were fertilized. Okay, 40 pollen grains fertilize 40 eggs or 40 ovules. Okay, so the number of fertilization is equivalent to the number of seeds found in the pod. Okay, so low fertilization means low seeds being formed. Okay, so how to enhance natural pollination on the farm? Most people are not able to do artificial pollination. So which means that they have to depend on natural pollination. Earlier on, I mentioned some of the ways you can use to enhance the reproduction of the midges on the farm. So we are going to look at more, and then we go a little more deeper. Okay. So recommendation number one, do not remove the leaves that fall on the ground from cacao and shade trees. So as you can see here, okay, the leaves that fall, don't remove them. There are some farmers, they have the tendency of gathering all the leaves. That you don't have to do that because the eggs of the midges are in the leaves. Okay, so you have to allow them to be there. Okay, then leave a layer of leaves on the ground to provide a home for the pollinators. Okay, you have to make a home for them so that they could be happily there and be able to multiply and then fly up to the trees and pollinate the flowers. Okay, no toxic chemical used here. Insecticides or other toxic substances kill pollinating midges. Okay, this is one thing that you should know. Okay, so generally speaking, you should sparingly use chemicals on the farm. Use it only when it's needed. Okay, but don't make it a habit of spraying the farm frequently, because when you do that, you destroy the pollinators. And when the pollinators are destroyed, it means that you are going to have few pods on your trees. Okay, that's one thing you should know. So try to avoid or reduce using chemicals in cacao plantation. You have to avoid or try to reduce. Okay, like I said, sparingly, only use when it's really needed. Okay, if it's not really, if pests are not really a big problem on the farm, it's not advisable because of the pollinators. Okay, number 3, grow shade trees, fruit trees, and bananas throughout the cacao grove so that temperatures remain cool and the midges can reproduce, grow, fly, and pollinate the cacao. So if you are going to use monocrop only, you might as well have problem with pollination. Okay, you should make sure that the farm is cool enough, preferably around 22 to 25 degrees Celsius. That should be the temperature on the farm most of the time. Okay, this is how the midges are able to stay alive. Okay, so if you expose the farm to so much sunshine, and then the farm is not cool as much as possible, then the reproduction of the midges is also affected. So please take note of this. Do not completely eliminate shade trees, okay, and that retain rainwater, because it is another way, another place where pollinating midges lay their eggs. So earlier on, I mentioned that you can make some trenches in the farm, and then you put plastic inside, and then you put water in those trenches. Okay, so it becomes like a place for the midges to lay their eggs, aside from the leaves and then the banana, pseudostelms, and so on and so forth. Okay, if you don't even put water by yourself and it rains, those holes are going to collect water, and the midges will lay their eggs in the water, okay, and reproduce, fly back to the trees, and get pollination to happen. Okay, provide more places for the midges to lay their eggs. Okay, you can cut the stems of banana or plantain. Okay, and then you make a disc in it, and then put the slices all over the farm. That's very important. Okay, so another thing you could do is, in some places in the farm, okay, from my personal experience, usually my parents on the cacao plantation, okay, they usually leave places or some spots, which is like maybe like 5 square meters or 10 square meters, and they will plant only bananas or plantains, okay? Only bananas there, and then another area, they will leave about 5 to 10 square meters, and then plant only bananas. Okay, so those places become like breeding ground for the midges. Okay, and then cut some of the stems and put it everywhere on the farm. Okay, so when they get rotten, and then they get moist, the midges will lay their eggs there. So all these species, you have to distribute them to the different part of the plantation. Okay, so take note of this. Now these are some of the ways you can help to multiply the colony of midges on your farm. Okay, it is best to keep those banana or plantain stem slices, okay, throughout the year, especially during the rainy months when the trees are about to flower. So what you have to do is you need to make sure that throughout the whole year, you have all the banana pseudo stems, pieces of banana stems you have cut all over the farm throughout the year. Okay, and then make sure that they are moist. Okay, they are not dry. They are getting rotten and they are wet like that. Okay, because the midges will be there. Now let's look at artificial pollination. Artificial pollination. This is not commonly practiced here in the Philippines. Yeah, but in my country, it is a government project for farmers. Okay, the government is the one leading artificial pollination. Okay, so no wonder the farmers are producing very large amount of, they have a large amount of yield. Okay, it's been recorded in my country, there are some farmers who are getting around 1,200 pots per tree per year. Okay, about 1,200 per tree. Yeah, because of artificial pollination. So if you really practice some of these things that we are teaching you, yeah, you could get up to 400 or 500 pots, okay, per tree per year. In the Philippines presently, number of pots per year is around 40 to 50 per year. And that's super, super low, super low. But with all these techniques and technology, you can increase even up to 400 pots per tree per year if you adopt a comprehensive training that we are giving you, because these are tested practices and technology being used in the cacao producing country. Now let's talk about what it is. So hand pollination can be done like this. So you pick a flower from a father tree, and then you remove the petals, revealing the anthers, and then you wrap it on the stigma or style of the flower of a mother tree. So we pick flower from tree A, and then we rub the anther on the stigma of flower B on another tree. Okay, so that is cross-pollination, and we do it by hand. Okay, all right. So it looks like this in this photo. So over here, down here, you see this flower has been picked, and then comes here and rub the anther on the flower of this one. So this will grow into a pod after being fertilized. So guess what? Every tree produces thousands of flowers every year. Okay? And your goal is to convert most of these flowers into pods. That is your goal. Okay? So I'm sure that when you visit your farm and you watch the flowers, you get so much excited. Wow, there's a lot of flowers. However, after a few weeks, you go there, all the flowers are falling. And you get sad. What's going on my farm? All right, but the good thing is, if you practice hand pollination, you can really make a big difference in your crop yield. Okay, so now let's look at step one. Step one. You have to select a mother flower you will want to pollinate. Okay, select a mother flower okay, which means that uh, you can divide your farm into blocks, okay? And then you are going to get flowers from this area, then you move it to that area, okay? And you pollinate them there. So you get flowers from that area, you move to that area, then you pollinate from this area to that area, and so on and so forth. So it's like you are doing cross pollination, okay? So step 2, select a father flower that will pollinate the mother flower. So like you will see in this photo here, you are going to pluck the flower, okay? And the one you remove becomes the father flower. Okay, so father flower and then mother flower on 2 different trees. Now step number 3, okay, you with tweezers remove the petals from the father flowers to uncover the anthers where the pollen is. Okay, so what you are going to do is you use tweezers and then you remove the petals. So the petals are removed. So you see here now the pollens are exposed on the anther. So over there, okay? That'll be the next step. Step number 4, hold the mother staminate flower carefully, and then with the tweezers, remove the staminate to uncover the stigma. So you are going to use the tweezers over here, okay? And then you remove the staminate here so that the stigma will be revealed like that. So after it's done, it's going to look like this one here, okay? So the staminates have been removed. And then you have the stigma over here. This is the female part of the flower, okay? And then what you are going to do is now rub the anthers of the father flower on the stigma of the mother flower so that the pollen will stick to it. Okay? Now you hold it like this. Now you rub, okay, the pollen here on the anther on the stigma like this. Okay? And then when you do it, fertilization takes place. Okay? So what you can do is one flower like this can be used to pollinate even more than 10 different flowers or different flowers on the mother tree, depending on how many anthers are found here. Okay, so one anther can be used to pollinate one flower like that. Okay, now option 2, how you can pollinate. What you can do is use forceps to remove the anther, that is the male part, okay, which has the pollen grains. And then you rub it on the female part as a stigma of the mother. Okay, so unlike I said before, you are going to remove the staminates, okay, to expose the stigma. And then you are going to remove the petals to expose the anther. In this second option, you don't do that. All you do is use the forceps to remove the female part, the male part of the flower. Okay, so holding the forceps, you go and then you just rub it on the female part. So there's no removal of any part of the plant. So in this case, you might not have to remove any of the floral parts of the flower. So the only thing you remove is the male part, okay? Is the male part of the flower. Okay, so that is what you do. Okay. Now let's look at recommendation for established farms. Okay, maybe your farm is already established. The trees are 3 years old, or 5 or 10 years old. Okay, so this is what you have to do. You have to integrate bananas into the farm to promote the proliferation of midges on the farm. Number 2, you can form farmers groups or teams to pollinate one farm at a time. Okay, so usually in cocoa areas, you can have cooperatives or just groups, farmers group. Okay, and what you can do is you can work on one farm at a time. Maybe you have 10 people in a group, in a farmers group. Okay, so you decide, okay, the next 3 days, we are going to pollinate this person's farm. After you are done, the next 3 days, you pollinate the other person's farm. After that, you pollinate the next person's farm until all the farms are pollinated. Okay, because doing it alone can be a little boring. But if you are in team, it's easier and fun to work together. Okay, that is one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is you could also hire labor, train them to hand pollinate the farm. Okay, if you have the resources, you can hire people, okay, and train them. Usually here in the Philippines, minimum wage is around maybe 500 or something plus. But even in the rural areas, minimum wage is around just 300 pesos. So let's assume that you hire 10 people for 300 pesos each. That is like 3,000 or something. Okay, 3,000 to pollinate the whole farm. And I tell you, when this is done, the 3,000 can give you more than 50 to 100,000. Okay, when the pollination is done. So the return from investment through when the farm is pollinated is very, very tremendous. Okay, so if you are really into business, then really this is for you. Maybe you are doing a farm, you are not running your farm as a business. In that case, you may not see any sense in what I'm saying. But if you are running your farm as a business, then understand that, look, business is about investing and getting return out of it. So if you put in 3,000 and you can get 50,000 out of it, is it a good deal? The answer is yes. You get a point? If you invest 3,000 or 4,000, okay, in pollinating the farm, and then in 6 months you are able to reap 50,000 out of the farm, that's tremendous investment. Okay, so don't think that, look, it's difficult, or don't think like, look, I can't do this. If you think you can do it, then you are not into business. You are not a businessman. Okay, but if you are into farm business, then you have to think business. Okay, think about what do I put in my farm in order to get higher return. Okay, and you do everything you can in order to make this happen. Because sometimes it's so annoying that when you spend a whole year and you get few pods on the tree, okay, it's so annoying. But if there's something you can do to increase yield, then do it. Okay, so the return on investment is usually over 10 times. It's usually over 10 times, okay, higher than the cost you spend in pollinating the farm. Get it? So why do most cacao plantations produce so little? Why do most cacao plantation produce so little? Okay, number one, excuse me. Number one, too few pollinators on the cacao plantation. This is one big issue. Okay, because of weedicide, because of insecticide. Okay, and because of poor farm management, usually there are few pollinators on the farm. And then if you have few pollinators, it means that you are not going to really have a good harvest. Number two, a lot of variability between trees. A lot of variability between trees on the cacao plantation. Number three, incompatibility between the trees on the cacao plantation. And then number four, lack of maintenance of the farm. And then number five, a lot of disease and pest condition. So we are going to talk about some of these, especially variability and incompatibility. We'll talk a little more about that. Okay, so now let's look at variability and incompatibility. Okay. Variability in cacao plantation is a direct result of sexual reproduction in cacao. The problem is that when variability is not controlled, majority of the trees produce only few fruit. Okay? Produce only few fruit. So when variability is not controlled, most of the harvest is produced by only few trees. That is 70 out of every 100 kilos are produced by 30 out of every 100 trees that grow on the cacao farm. So what that means is that on the entire farm, only 30% of the trees produce the yield, okay? The 70% of the trees produce nothing because of variability, okay? Because of variability, all right? So in other words, 70% of the harvest is produced by 30% of the trees in the plantation, okay? So if there's so much variability on your farm, this is the problem you are going to encounter, okay? And when we say variability, we are talking about a farm with so many different varieties of cacao growing together on the same farm, okay? So these three has purple pods, this one has yellow, this one has green. I mean, some kind of variability on the farm, okay? The problem is that with time, the trees don't produce anymore because of variability, okay? So please take note of this. And then, like we discussed earlier on, you have to use single variety or you just few varieties on your farm. Don't make so many kinds of varieties on the same farm because it's going to bring a problem of low yield with time, okay? So if your farm is just maybe UF18, make sure that the entire farm is UF18, okay? So don't make all kinds of varieties on the same farm because it affects yield, okay? So if you do everything we are talking about here, you can be sure that, look, after harvest, okay, you can take a holiday with your family. Okay, you can go anywhere, take 1 week or 1 month vacation with your family. If your trees are producing enough, okay, then you don't have to worry. You can stay somewhere and then relax. Okay. Now the good news is you can increase the number of trees that are good producers, okay, in your cacao plantation, okay? There are techniques for doing that. Irrespective of all the problems there is, so far as growing cacao is concerned, there is still good news. There's something you can do, okay, in order to increase yield on your farm, in order to increase yield on your farm, okay? Now, the first thing we'll talk about is compatibility, okay? Compatibility. So, compatible when two trees are able to pollinate each other, okay? If tree A is able to pollinate tree B, it means they are compatible. But if tree A cannot pollinate tree B, we say they are incompatible, okay? So when the pollen of one tree can fertilize the flowers of another tree, then we say that the trees are compatible with each other. Okay, the trees are compatible with each other. But if the fruit, and seeds routinely fail to develop from a particular crop, we say that these trees are incompatible with each other. Okay, so if the flowers after fertilization do not produce spores, we say they are not compatible. Okay, but if they are able to produce spores, then we say they are compatible. Let's talk about self-incompatibility. Also, some trees can fertilize themselves, while others cannot. So when the pollen of a tree can fertilize the flowers of the same tree, we say they are self-compatible. Okay, they are self-compatible. On the other hand, if they cannot, we say they are self-incompatible. Okay, so if it cannot, then we say it's self-incompatible. And most cacao trees are self-incompatible. They cannot fertilize themselves. Okay, so now let's look at this photo here. Okay, so we have the sperm lands here. Okay, but the sperm cannot fertilize and go down. Okay, it does not travel through the pollen tube, okay, to fertilize the egg here. So in this case, we say it's self-incompatible. Okay, in picture 2, we have semi-compatibility. So the two sperms fall here, but only one travels to fertilize the egg. So in this case, we say that it's semi-compatible. And then in this case, if all the sperms travel down to fertilize the egg, then we say it is full compatible or fully compatible. So this is the differences. And most cacaos are like this, self-incompatible. Okay, they are like this one. So this is the caution. You must pay a lot of attention to the issue of compatibility and incompatibility, because it can really affect production, affect the production of a cacao plantation. So if there's one particular thing you really have to pay attention to, because as far as fertilization is concerned, could also be this. Okay? All right. So as you can see over here, okay, for example, some trees produce flowers, but do not produce fruits. Often it is caused by incompatibility. So if you look at this particular tree here, you see a lot of dead flowers, okay, a lot of dead flowers. So the tendency could be that some pollen grains from one flower has fallen on them, okay? And when that happens, the flower will die. The flower dies, okay? So to help out, you can always fertilize this by yourself by doing hand pollination. So on this in this particular area, okay, if you check closely, if we are going to count the number of flowers here, I'm sure we'll get around 40 flowers. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So even this area alone is 20. So if you are going to count this area, I'm sure we are going to get another 22. So you can imagine that if you hand pollinate this small area, you are going to get around 40 pods over here. And this is tremendous. So if you hand pollinate a whole tree, no wonder you are going to get around 500 pods growing on the tree, developing on the tree. All right, so you should really pay attention, okay? You should keep an eye on your farm. Which particular trees usually shed their flowers? After the flowers appear, then it's all gone. So those particular trees, you need to help them by doing hand pollination. Okay, by doing hand pollination. Okay. So if the trees in the cacao plantation are not compatible with each other, or with themselves, then fewer fertilizations are going to happen. Okay? So fewer fertilizations are going to happen. Like in this image here too. If you hand pollinate all this, you are going to get more than 40 pods here. So in a small area like this, okay? So you are going to get so many pods here. And it will be so beautiful when you take photo. Okay, so if you pollinate the whole tree, that will be awesome. Okay, that will be very, very awesome. All right. So the plantation will produce many flowers, but usually few pods if there is self-incompatibility issue. Okay. So in the same way in this image, we can see over here, if you count all these, okay, you're going to get a lot of flowers. Okay. In the same way, if you hand pollinate them, you are going to get a lot of pods growing in that particular area. Okay, so you can increase your yield drastically. Okay, so does anyone know how? Does anyone know how to correct this problem? Okay, so these are practical farm management suggestions. Okay, these are practical farm management suggestions. Number one, divide your farm into equal blocks. Let's assume you have 1 hectare of cacao. So you can divide the farm into maybe 10 different blocks. Okay? So when you divide into 10 blocks, what do? Closely identify areas with high yielding. Okay? Closely identify areas that are high yielding and the areas which are not. Okay? There are some areas on the farm, almost every year, you get a lot of pods from that area. And then there is another part of your farm, almost every year you get like nothing or few pods from that area. So your duty is to closely identify areas which have a lot of yield and the areas which have no yield. Okay, and then what you can also do is, apart from dividing into blocks, you should also put tags. That makes you a scientist. Okay, you have to put tags on the trees. If you want to know the performance of the various areas, okay, you can get a form, okay, and you can recall how many pods you are getting from this tree, from that tree, which section of the farm is not really producing. So you have a chart, you put in a plastic bag and you tie it somewhere on the cacao so that it doesn't get wet. So every time you go to the farm, you observe and you take note, okay? That will help you to closely monitor the various plots on the farm. You might not be able to monitor every tree, but you can monitor the plots, okay, and how much yield you are getting from that particular area, okay? So if you're able to do that, number 3, select flowers from areas that are high yielding, okay, to areas, to hand pollinate areas that are low yielding. So what you are going to do is, okay, you transfer flowers from plot A and then to plot B, okay, in case plot A bears more fruit than plot B. So you are helping in the process of cross-pollination, okay? And then most of the time, low pod formation could be traced to incompatibility problems, okay? So to help solve this problem, these are some of the practical applications that you can use. Okay, these are some of the practical applications. Okay, so like this is the whole farm. Let's say this farm is 1 hectare. So you are going to divide the plot into 6 different parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this side you call it farm ABC or plot ABC, and then plot 1, 2, 3. Okay. So what you are going to do is you are going to get pollen from plot 1, and then you move it to plot C to fertilize them. And then you get pollen from plot B, you move it to plot 1 to fertilize. And then from plot A to plot 2. Okay, so you enhance cross-pollination on the farm. However, let me say that you might not have to do this for the entire farm. Okay, your goal is to improve the yield of the areas of the farm which has low yielding or which is low yielding. So you target those areas, okay? For the areas that are bearing good fruit and has got good yield, okay, you might not have to hand pollinate those areas. So you pollinate the areas with low yield, okay? You pollinate the areas with low yield. Please take note. Okay, so remember, your farm is your business, okay? You should always remember that your farm is your business. And that in a business, okay, you don't wait for things to happen, okay? You don't wait for things to happen. If you are into business, you create the results you are looking for, okay? So every year, you make an expectation for the farm. So what do you expect to get out of the farm every year? What's your expectation? What do you intend to have? How much yield do you want to have? So if you know how much yield you want to have, then you create the result that you are looking for. Okay? You have to create it. So you need to run the farm, run it as a business. Okay, so maybe this year you have you got 2 tons. Okay, make it your goal. Next year I'm going to increase my yield to 4 tons. What are you going to do? Okay, you are going to do hand pollination. Okay, you will apply your fertilizers, you do your pruning, and so on and so forth. And by doing that, you create the result that you are looking for. Okay, some more suggestions. Okay, the solution to self-incompatibility is to introduce trees that are compatible with the other trees on the plantation, okay, and compatible with themselves. So one way you can solve incompatibility, okay, is to plant trees that are compatible. Okay, that is one way that you can do it. Okay, in other words, they should be self-compatible as well as compatible with nearby trees. Okay, so if you are going to buy cacao seedlings, okay, you need to ask them, where did you get the seeds from? What's the variety? Do they have compatibility problems? Anything you have to ask. Okay, ask, very important. Okay, so when you are buying seeds, you must think about compatibility all the time when you are buying seeds. Okay, many farmers, when they want to establish a new cacao plantation, they don't pay attention to where they obtain the seeds from. Okay, they don't really pay attention to where they get the seeds from. Okay, so usually when you want to buy seed, most of the time you just ask your neighbor for some seed. Okay, from the good productive trees on their farm. Okay, that produces many pods with light seeds and other good qualities. So this is okay. But the issue here is that seeds will never produce the same characteristic as their mother. It doesn't happen like that. Okay, so genetically, seeds might not have the same qualities like the mother tree. But if you use grafting, then you can maintain the same qualities that is found in the mother tree. Okay. However, if you plant by seeds, there is no way you are going to have the same yield. So you have to take note of this. There's no way you are going to have that yield. So instead of using seed, you have to use grafted seedlings. Okay, you start your rootstock with seeds. However, your final seedling should be a grafted seedling. Okay, to keep the quality of the mother tree, it's better to use grafted seedling. It's a lot of work, but it will pay off. Okay, it is also possible that those seeds could produce trees that are not compatible, okay, with other trees on the cacao plantation. Okay, let's see that this tree has no compatibility problem, and then you got seeds from here. Okay, the fact that you got seeds from this tree does not guarantee that the seeds are also the seeds do not have compatibility problem. But if you cut a branch, okay, you can have the guarantee that the branch is the same like the mother plant. That's one, get certified seeds. So in that case, it's advisable, okay, to find out where to obtain certified seeds. That's why earlier on I recommended BPI, GA, and then other certified farms. Okay, these places you can get certified seedlings and seeds, okay, for your farm. Okay, in those places, usually they select trees with a good trait without problem of compatibility. So you are sure to get some good seedlings for your new farm or for the project you are starting. So you need to remember that even if we cross-select trees that are compatible, okay, the offsprings of these trees will still not be exactly like their parents. Okay, that's what I mentioned earlier. So they will also be different from each other. They might be different from each other. Okay, so you need to note this. So how to resolve variability and compatibility? How to resolve variability and compatibility? Number one, the best way to resolve the problems of variability and compatibility is by using reproductive techniques that do not rely only on compatibility of sex cells. Okay, so there are so many reproductive techniques or propagation. Okay, propagation techniques that can be used. Okay, aside from depending on seeds. Okay, there are so many you can use. You can use grafting, you can use budding, you can use layering, and so on and so forth. And even tissue culture, that's more advanced. You might not be able to do that, but at least you can use grafting and budding, which is really good, or even layering, and so on and so forth. Okay? So we talk about asexual reproductive techniques in cacao. Okay, in cacao, several sexual reproduction techniques are used, such as grafting, layering, root cutting, and then using somatic embryogenesis. Okay, so these could be used, okay, to reproduce new offspring that have the qualities that you are looking for, that have the qualities you are looking for. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this presentation. So let's open the door for questions and answers. Okay, let's open the door for questions and answers. Okay, so if you have any question, please you have any question, please answer. Use the Q&A. Don't use the chat, please. Use the Q&A to ask your question. Don't use the chat. Okay, so let's look at the first question here. Sorry, I might have made some earlier, some details earlier. I remember there are 3 kinds of flowers. If you manually pollinate, does it matter what kind of flowers you use? Okay, during the pollination. Okay, when you are manually pollinating, it doesn't matter which type of flowers you use. Okay, however, in natural pollination, only 2 types are fertilized. We said that usually the divergent, the convergent, and then the parallel are fertilized by the midges. But in the displayed, which is also called the divergent, because of the nature of the staminals, the midges are not able to access what do you call it? The pollen grains here, because the pollen grains is covered completely. Okay, but if you're hand pollinating, you can always remove the staminals, so you can have access to the pollen grains. So in hand pollination or manual pollination, it doesn't matter which flower you use. Okay, you can use any of the flowers. Okay, you can use any of the flowers. Okay, the next question. Okay, you said we can introduce compatible trees to improve production. How can we know if we are introducing a compatible tree, or how can we tell if a tree is self-compatible? Okay, let me begin by saying that the trees, most of the trees are self-incompatible. They don't fertilize themselves. Okay, however, uh, they can fertilize others. But there are some other trees, they are self-incompatible, and then because of variation on the farm, there are other trees around which they are also not compatible with those trees. Okay, so two problems here. Number one, self-incompatibility, and number two, incompatibility with the other trees around. Okay, and you know it simply because you notice that all the flowers are going to drop, or most of the flowers are going to fall. Okay, so if you realize on your farm that these particular trees, almost all the time, the flowers will fall down, then you have to know, okay, right away, that there is incompatibility problem there. Okay, there could be two problems. Okay, one is unique to every cacao, which is self-incompatibility. Okay, and the second problem is incompatibility with other trees around. Okay, so if you notice that most of the flowers are falling, then there is incompatibility problem. So in that case, you are going to get pollen grains from another part of the farm and fertilize that particular area. You hand pollinate that area, which loses all their flowers after flowering. Okay, and to know that the tree hasn't got compatibility problem, you notice the trees that produce a lot of pods, they don't have compatibility problem. Okay, they don't have. So you can get scion, or you can get grafting material from those particular trees. Okay, and then you can introduce them. Okay, you can do top wedging, or you can do budding on some of the trees, in case after you bring in pollen from outside and the problem is not solved, then you need to cut those trees down and then graft them. Okay, graft them or top wedge them or bud, and then they will begin to produce new trees that are compatible. Okay, I'm Joy. Hope I answered your question. And the next question, how long should we rub the anther? How long should we rub the anther of the father tree on the stigma or the style of the mother tree? It's just some few seconds only, maybe just like 5 seconds. Just rub, it's okay. So it should not take hours to do that. It's just some few seconds, then it's done. Okay, so it should not be too long. Okay. Another question, Mike here. How long does a flower, how long does a flower take before it turns to, it turns into a mature pod? Okay. Usually it depends on the variety. Okay, but on average, after flowering all the way to pod formation, on average it takes like 4 months. Okay, on average it takes like 4 months. Okay, so there are some other which will like 3 to 5 months. Okay, for most variety, but on average, after flowering all the way to pod formation, will take like 4 months, like that. Okay, before it is ready to be harvested. Okay, and that is why there are two seasons. Okay, there are 2 seasons for cacao. So on average, like one season takes like 6 months, but usually from flowering all the way to pod formation on average takes like 4 months, like that. Okay, and then after that, it will take like another 2 months to get the trees rejuvenated, and then another flowering season will begin. Okay, all right. Some more questions. Okay, ask questions regarding your farm. Okay, anything you think need to be done on your farm, just ask questions about that. Any more questions? Okay, so if there are no more questions, I will just give some more comments, and then we are going to conclude for today. Okay, so let me say that uh, please, Cacao Enterprise is a business. Okay, it's a multi-million dollar business. Okay, so if you want to go into cacao production, uh, have a business mindset. Okay, have a business mindset. Don't go into the business like you are just trying to see what's going to happen. No, it should not be like that. Okay, so you should have a business mindset, and then everything you put into the farm, every input, every fertilizer, everything, you have to document everything down. Okay, so at the end of the day, you know how much you have put into your farm. So after the harvest, you'll be able to know how much you got, and then how much profit you got out of the farm. Okay, so if you don't do it that way, then you are just going to run at a loss. You are not going to get anything. And then let me say that if there is anything you can do to make your farm better, for example, attending trainings like this to enhance your knowledge is very, very important. Why? Because it will give you the skill and the knowledge that you need to be able to run your business very well, your farm business. And then I will also say that if you have a farm, okay, you should have a future mindset, okay? Now in the future, you want to also go into processing, okay? So if you really want to make more money from cacao, then you should think about processing as well. Initially, it might not be easy, but you can always plan ahead of time, okay? When you are able to process whatever comes out of your farm. Because the truth is like this, okay? The farmer, okay, gets only about 10% of the whole revenue of the cacao. If you sell the beans to somebody, it means that your share of the whole revenue from the cacao is only about 10%. Okay, so the 90% is going to be shared by other people. So you are the one who produced the cacao, but somebody is making money out of your business. So you should think about, okay, if that is the case, in the future, I want to go into processing. Okay, if you are able to add value to your farm produce, you'll be able to make more and more profit. Okay, so think that way so that you will be able to make more. That's it's really sad. If you look at the farmers and how much they are suffering, and you look at the sellers and how much money they are making, it's really not okay. And that is why even now the cacao producing countries are targeting into increasing processing. I remember many years ago, maybe around 2008, okay, my country was processing only 20% of the cacao. But now the country is processing up to 40%. Okay, and the government's goal is to increase it to 60%. Okay, because if you are going to sell the raw produce, then you are not going to gain at all. Okay, the chocolate industry is making all the money. Okay, so think about business. Okay, think about processing. Okay, after you put in all these trainings, you increase your yield. Okay, don't let it end there. Okay, so think about how you can add value to your produce and be able to make a lot out of it. Okay, there are some more questions here. Let's see. Let's answer them. Okay, so Noel, you said before that. Okay, let me share the screen so that you can see. Okay. You said before that flowers from male plants can pollinate female of the same tree. Okay. If grafted plants were used, would it be able to bear fruit because it's grafted? No, even for grafted, as a Noel, even for grafted seedlings, the issue of self-incompatibility is still there. Okay, now through genetic engineering, this problem is being worked now, but until now, less than 1% of cacao trees are self-compatible. Okay, so if you use grafted seedlings, the problem which will be removed is incompatibility with other trees around. Okay, incompatibility with other trees will be removed. Okay, but self-incompatibility is still about 99%. Okay, so get this very clearly. Okay, so grafting will reduce incompatibility with other trees, but not with self. Okay, then another question for Sir Noel. Will you have training in the future for cacao processing like chocolate making? Yes, Sir Noel, in the future we'll have training, but we can do this only when this COVID crisis are over. Okay, because of the COVID, it's really hard now. Yeah, to have meetings, especially in Davao City. Yeah, we are again under uh, we are again in how do they call it? Is it ECQ or something like that? So there's curfew and a lot of problems. You can't go out now compared to before. So when the COVID is over, for sure we can have training on processing and chocolate making. Okay, another question here. So just wondering, for example, I have UF183 and Criollo. This doesn't mean necessary. This doesn't necessarily mean that they can cross-pollinate. That's it. I'm entertaining a thought of having pots that have big beans but have lesser acidic flavor. Okay. Sir, if you have UF18, okay, and Criollo, and then you cross-pollinate, okay, it's likely you are going to have both the characteristics of both Criollo and then UF18, okay? You have both characteristics together. So let me see, does it necessarily mean that they can, yeah, they can cross-pollinate, okay? UF18 and Criollo can cross-pollinate. And then what you get out of it, it's going to be the characteristics of both UF18 and Criollo. Okay, so it's possible they will cross-pollinate. Okay, can I be able to call you for further clarifications on certain things and for guidance? Yes and no, well, that's okay. That's okay. However, if you send your question via email, that would be better. Okay, that would be better. So I will provide our email so that if you have any clarification, just email. And then if you email and we need to call, we'll call you. And then we will talk to you about that. Okay, you can email. Okay, another question. When cross-pollination happens, does the cacao pod have a more of the mother tree's characteristics or the father's trees, or is this undetermined? Okay, as of now, it's not visually determined. Okay, if you cross, it's not determined how much or how what percentage of the mother's characteristic will be found in the male, in the offspring, or how much of the father's characteristic will be found. So it's not determined yet. Okay, it's not determined, and it's just like in reproduction in humans. If a male and female will meet together, we can determine what percent of this characteristic will be found in the son or in the child. Okay, so it's still not determined yet, so we can't know. Okay, but we are sure that the two characteristics will be merged together. But which percentages, as of now, it's not known. Okay, another question. What is your advice to a 3-year-old cacao but still small and seems like it's not growing? Can I replace with new seedlings? Okay. The problem might be with the soil. Okay. The problem might be with the soil. So number one, do soil tests. Okay. Do soil test. It could be that the soil is highly acidic. Okay. So do soil test because the problem is if the soil is acidic, nutrient absorption is not possible. And then if nutrient absorption is not possible, the trees do not grow well. Okay, so you can do soil test. Actually, you can buy the soil test kit from Lazada or from Alibaba. It's not expensive. Okay, you buy it and you can use it for a lifetime. So you get a sample of the soil and then you prepare solution of prepare it in water or dilute in water, and then you use the pH scale to check. If the pH is below 5, it means that the soil is highly acidic. Okay, and then because of that, the cacao is not having access to the nutrients in the soil. Okay, So if that is the case, then you can apply some poultry manure on the farm, or you can buy some commercial lime and apply it on the farm, okay, to solve the acidity problem in the soil. And then if the acidity problem is solved and you apply fertilizer, the cacao will begin to grow well. So please do a soil analysis first to check why the trees are not growing, okay? It's very important you check it out. Or if you don't have the money to buy the kit, you can take a sample of your soil and you take it to your TA. Usually they have a laboratory for testing soil. So if you give it to them, they will test, I think get a small fee only. They will test it for you so that you know exactly the condition of your soil. Okay, that's very important. Because 3-year-old trees are supposed to produce pot already. They are supposed to produce pot. Okay, another one. May we have a site or a group in Facebook where all of us Cacao trainees can be able to ask and help each other? Okay, okay. That is very good. I've not created a group yet. So Noah, with your suggestion, when we are done with the training, I will create the group, okay? And then I will add as many who have attended the training in the past. I will add them to the group so that we can chat over there, ask questions, and then anything. That'll be very good. So Noah, thank you for the suggestion. Okay, another question. Is it advisable to wrap all pots with plastic to protect it against insects? It's not advisable. Only wrap it when you detect pot borers on your farm. Okay, if you detect pot borers on the farm, that is when you wrap the pots with plastic. But usually the plastic does not make the farm look good. To be honest with you, it doesn't make the pots, the farm look good. So if you take photos, it doesn't really look good. Yeah, but make sure that you wrap them when you detect that pot borers are beginning to show up on the farm. Okay? So if you don't have incidences of pot borers, there is no need to wrap them. There is no need to wrap them with plastic. Okay, another question. If the bark of the tree has been eroded, can the cacao still form flowers or bear pods on that site? Can scars on the tree prevent it from forming flowers on the side? Can it constantly touch or disturb the tree? No, not affected with fruit bearing. Okay. Saint Noel, usually if there's a scar on the tree, naturally it's going to heal. Okay. But until it completely healed, that particular place, flowers do not appear because the flowers appear on the skin, which has got something called cuticles, and then the cuticles from uh, those spots, that is where the flowers begin to appear. So if the skin is removed, it means that the cuticles are destroyed. But after a period of time, if the bark is healed, new cuticles will begin to form in that particular place. So until complete healing takes place, then flowers cannot come out. Why? Because the cuticles have been destroyed completely. Okay, but if you are constantly scratching the trees, then flowering on those places is going to be nearly impossible because the cuticles are going to be destroyed. And then without cuticle, no flower is going to pop out from the stem. Okay, the flower, no flower will pop up. Okay, the next question is, hi sir, why uh, do you think lots of mosquito on our farm? Okay, okay. Is it because of intercrop? Okay, okay. Yeah, mosquitoes are, they are everywhere, not only on your farm, or even in the houses, they are everywhere. Okay, so any cool area, mosquitoes are likely to be there. Okay, so don't worry about the mosquito because they don't have any negative effect on the cacao. Okay, actually they serve as food for other predatory insects. Okay, so they will save the midges as well if they are on the farm. So don't worry about the mosquitoes. And then is it intercrop with coconuts? No, it's not because it's intercrop with coconut, no. Because even farms without coconut, there are still mosquitoes there. Okay, so don't worry about the mosquitoes because they don't harm the cacao in any way. Okay, they do not harm the cacao at all. Okay, any more questions? Another question here. How do we know if the pod can be harvested? Okay, how many times do you harvest in a year? Okay, okay. You need to harvest the pod immediately it starts turning yellow. Okay, immediately it starts turning yellow. Okay, if you don't harvest it immediately, or if you do late harvesting, okay, the problem of pod borers increase on the farm. Okay, the problem of pod borers increase on the farm if harvesting is delayed all the time. Okay, so you should take note of this. Take note of this. So you should do harvesting like ideally like once or twice every month. You should do harvesting. Okay, so don't wait till all the pods will turn completely yellow before you harvest. Like every month, you can go around and pick all the yellow pods like that. If ever somebody is managing the farm, you tell them, okay, every month you need to harvest. Every month you have to harvest. So it's better to harvest and then allow it to turn yellow completely. Okay, when you are not ready to break the pod here, than to leave it on the tree to turn yellow completely. Yeah, because that increases the incidence of pod borer. Okay, so you should take note of this. Okay, right here. Okay, another question there. Is there a plant or crop you know that can deter pod borers? Or can we attract them naturally? Okay, a predator of pod borers. Okay. As of now, I don't know of any plant, okay, that can uh, specifically deter pod borers or attract them. However, there are a lot of insect repellent plants out there. Okay, there are a lot of insect repellent out there. I mean, plants that can repel insects. So you can try any of them. Okay, you can grow them somewhere on the farm, or you can prepare solution of those and spray it on the farm. That could also be. Okay, so Noah said neem tree can help. Neem tree can help. Okay, I've not tried that. I did a research on neem tree, I think last semester in USEF, okay, using neem tree to control diseases. Okay, it has been documented that neem tree can control disease and pests, then like organic insecticide, okay, for most vegetables, but I have not come across any research specifically for cacao. Okay, so you can give it a try and see. Okay, it's not yet proven yet, but you can just try. Okay, because neem tree has got some pesticidal properties. Okay, and then locally too, there are a couple of plants like that. I may not know their names locally, but you can just try, plant them in the farm, and then from time to time, you can spray on a particular plant with pot borer and see what will happen. Okay, just through trial and error, you might be able to find answers to the problem. But honestly speaking, even the use of insecticide is not really recommended for pot borers. For pot borers, it's usually manual control is the best by just destroying them and destroying their breeding centers. Okay, another question here. I'll answer your question. Okay, I may miss a while ago. If doing an artificial pollination, is it 1 to 1, one mother tree to one father tree, or it can be 1 to 2? Actually, it can be 1 to 5. Okay, so if you pick the flower, okay, there are so many anthers. Okay, the anthers are the male parts of the of the flower. So one flower can be used, okay, to fertilize. Okay, one flower from the male plant or from the father can be used to fertilize up to 5 or even more flowers on another tree. Okay, so it's not 1 to 1. So it could be 1 to how many flowers and so on and so forth, because every tree has so many flowers on them. Okay, so it depends on the number of anthers found on the father flower. So you pick one and then you use it to fertilize one flower. Okay, 1 or 2 to fertilize one flower. You pick another, fertilize another flower, and pick another, fertilize another flower. So one particular male flower can fertilize like even more than 5 female mother flowers. Okay, so uh, that is it. That is how it is. Okay. Uh, another question here. Have you heard about using mandri de cacao as organic fertilizer? I have not heard about that. I have not heard about that. Okay. Maybe I will read about that. I've not heard about mandri de cacao. I will write it down. I will check it later. So if you have any question about that, maybe you can follow up with a chat through Messenger. Madre de Cacao. Okay. Another question here. Our flower inducers applicable in cacao. Yeah, flower inducers are applicable, okay, but through my research, uh, the only proven way to induce flowering, okay, is through pruning. From my research, there might be other ways, okay, through pruning and then proper fertilization, okay, and then the natural way to induce flowering, okay, is to ensure proper ventilation. Like I mentioned, the flowers come out from the cuticles. Okay, so air blowing really trigger the cuticles, okay, to begin to let the flower out. Okay, so proper pruning, okay, and fertilization will just induce flowering right away. It will induce flowering. Unlike in mangoes, they have some hormones that they use. Yeah, but hormones are not really used in cacao production. It's not. It's more of other fruits. It's not so much used in cacao production. Another question here: is it advisable to smoke the farm like mangoes to induce flowering? No, smoking is not used in cacao farms. Okay, throughout my farming experience, we never smoked the farm. I never smoked the farm. And then I have not read any literature about that as well. Okay, another question. Is cacao and cashew compatible to grow together? Does it have effect? Does it affect protein of, does it affect protein of cacao like how cashew affect mangoes? Okay. So Noel, for cashew, I have not studied much about cashew. However, what I can say is that uh, when you talk about what crop could be grown with cacao, okay, you have to think about the interaction, okay, between the cacao and then the plant, the other crop, which has been planted with the cacao, okay. So number one, you have to think about the kind of disease that affect both of them. Do they have the same diseases? If they don't have the same diseases, then it's okay. Number two, do they have the same pests? If they don't have the same pests, then it's okay. And then number three, think about the rooting system, okay? Because cashew has got a very vigorous rooting system, lateral and tap root system. So if you are going to grow it together with cacao, it means that you are going to need spacing of around 6 meters, okay, to ensure proper yield in cacao. Spacing need to be really good because both have got the same rooting system. If spacing is not really wide, it means that the roots are going to uh, fight for the available nutrients. And then both of them have really got vigorous roots that travel very wide. Okay, that is why it's really advisable that when you use tree crop, if you intercrop with tree crop, you have to really ensure very wide spacing in order to avoid competition for resources in the soil. And apart from that, you have to think about the canopy too. Okay, so cashew has got a wider canopy compared to cacao. Okay, so if the spacing is not big enough, it means that the cacao is going to be overshadowed as well. Okay, it's going to be overshadowed as well, unless you decide to control the growth of the cashews. Okay. However, apart from these things, then they could be grown together. So these are some of the things you want to grow. you might want to consider. It might not only apply to cashew, however, any other crop you want to grow together with the cacao, these are some of the considerations that you need to consider. Okay, you need to take into consideration before you plant them together. Okay. Next question here. Michael is asking, can we use organic fertilizers, which is better, vermicast, that's worm manure or chicken manure? Okay, so Michael, you can use organic fertilizer. Okay, both chicken manure and then vermicast are good to be used. However, you have to remember that if the chicken manure is not processed, it might as well bring some disease on the farm. Okay, so proper processing, proper drying is very important. Okay, and then you have to also consider the cost involved, because your goal is to run a farm which is not called intensive. Okay, so choose a cheaper fertilizer which can serve the purpose you are looking for. So whether it's vermicast or chicken manure, any of them can be used. Okay, so just make sure that the chicken manure is processed before you take it to your farm to avoid introduction of some kind of disease. Okay, another question. Initially, I have 5 cacao trees. Fortunately and unfortunately, one of the trees is producing flower. All were applied fertilizer equally. How come only one is producing flower? Okay, yeah. A couple of factors can be considered here. The fact that you put fertilizer doesn't mean that the fertilizer is available, okay, to the plant. Okay, it doesn't mean that. Okay, because the pH of the soil will determine whether the fertilizer is available or is not available. So the soil around the cacao trees might have different soil pH. Okay, so if around this particular tree, the pH is not between 5 to 6, 6, it means that the nutrient you have applied is useless, because the plant will not be able to absorb the nutrient. When the pH is more than 6, or the pH is below 5, nutrient absorption is nearly impossible. Okay, so that is one thing you need to consider. Another thing you have to consider is, I'm not sure if those trees are from the same variety or not. If they are from the same variety, okay. If they are not from the same variety, it could be that they have got different fruiting years, okay. Some may take 2 years, some may take 3 years, and so on and so forth. But if they are from the same variety, okay, then the possible reason might be the pH of the soil. Okay, the amount of acidity or alkali in the soil could be the main reason why it's not fruiting. Okay, so you can do a soil analysis or a soil test. Find out around the 5 cacao trees, what is the pH here, the pH there, and so on and so forth. And that is likely to solve your question. Okay, the next question, is cacao growth compatible with lime-rich places like Guimaras, which is the best soil type, or is ideal, or the ideal soil for cacao? Okay, yeah, it's compatible. Okay, because even in acidic soil, it's recommended to apply lime, because lime is able to improve the pH of the soil. So if the soil is rich in lime, it means that the pH could be controlled. Okay, the pH of the soil could be controlled. So, Sir Noel, it's not bad. Okay, if your soil is rich in lime, it's not bad. Okay, another question here. Is it okay to plant two varieties on a farm? Yeah, it's okay. However, the best is not to mix them together. Okay, so one part of the farm, one variety, another variety, like that. Because too much variation on the farm with time affect the yield. Okay, yield decline if variation is too much on the farm. Okay, so it's you cannot plant, but make sure that you put them in different plots. So this side we plant with this particular varieties, and this side we plant with another variety, something like that. Okay. Another question here. Okay, this is answered already. Okay, another question. So Noel, can mahogany be used as windbreaks? Does mahogany poison cacao growth? Okay, I have had this question a couple of times. Okay, so it could be used as windbreaks. Okay, so you just grow it around the farm. But understand that mahogany grows into a very thick, gigantic tree. Okay, so usually growing it inside the farm can create problem in the future, especially you can control its growth because usually it's grown for wood like furniture and so on and so forth. But if you are using it as a windbreak, that is okay because mahogany is a very strong wood and it could be very strong in resisting strong typhoons and so on and so forth. So for windbreaks, it's really good to use. It's not bad to use mahogany as a windbreak. It's okay. Okay, can we ask for certificate of training for the 3 trainings we attended? Hope there is so we can display in our office. Yeah, I guess Sir Noel, we provided certificate before. Okay, so this one will provide certificate as well. No problem with that. We'll provide certificate for all the training. Okay. How would you determine the variety of cacao if the seedlings we planted were just about 1 year old? Okay, okay. Yeah, usually you can determine the variety by looking at the leaves. Okay, by looking at the leaves. Sometimes it's hard to determine. However, you can use a chart. There's a chart that you can use. Okay, so you look at the chart and then you compare with the structure of the leaves, and then you will be able to determine the variety which is on your farm. Okay, so later on, if you want, I can send a chart to you, okay, which will help you to know what variety is that by looking at the leaves and the structure of the canopy formation and so on. You comparing it to the chart, it's easier to find. Okay, it's easier to find which kind of variety it is. So you can do that. Okay, and then yes, I can send the chart to you, which will help you to determine the variety you have. Okay, so Noel, no problem. I will send as well to you. Okay, any more questions before we close? Okay. We still have some more questions here. Okay, so Noel, possibly the next training might be around, maybe today is 21. Since this December, we'll be getting into Christmas. Okay, we'll plan the next training and then we'll communicate it to you. So we'll plan the next training. I'm not sure yet. We don't have plan for December yet. But in case we have to, we will plan it. We will plan it. Okay. So I would like to say thank you, everybody. And then maybe you joined, but you have not done your payment. Anybody like that? In order to get the certificate and the videos, you can contact us so that you do your payment, then we'll send the videos and certificates to you. So by Tuesday, the videos and certificate will be emailed to you. Okay, by Tuesday. Okay, the videos and certificates will be emailed. Okay, so before we end, I want you to please give us a rating of the training. Okay, give us a rating from 0 to 9, 0 to 10, 10 being excellent and then 0 being poor. Please give us a rating. Give your rating in the chat. Okay, give us your rating in the chat. Don't mind, just be honest and give your honest feedback because that is how we improve the training. Okay, so give your rating here in the chat. Okay, from 0 to 10, whatever you think, just give us your feedback. Okay, everybody give us your feedback, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you so much. Okay, this particular training, because we have problem with our Facebook account, we couldn't really do so much advertisement, and that's why we had to extend it. But yet we could not get more people to register. So in the next training, likely we'll have more participants than this one. So thank you, Maramin Salamat, Paul. Thank you, and God bless you all. Okay, God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you.